All right, it is Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and you guys know what that is. It's time for another conversation with Commodores, and we've got an insider. We got the man who knows what's going on. We've got Coach Justin Lustig with us this evening. Coach, thank you very much for making some time. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I'm fired up to be here. Those V's in the background look good.
They sure do. They sure do. Guys, I know you know who Coach is, but let me give you a little rundown. He is, and tell me if I got this right, associate head coach, special teams coordinator, and tight ends coach. Is there anything else? Do you lug the water buckets? What else do you do, Coach?
That's about it.
And if you guys know, the tight end room has been a special room the last couple of years. Number 10, number 86 leading the charge. Those guys are graduating out of the program, and I know there's some good troops behind. But a little bit more about Coach Lustig. He played at Bucknell, four-year starter, defensive back, and captain. 2016 D2 Coach of the Year at Edinburgh. Goes from a 0-11 team, turns it to a 9-2 team. That's some change in culture, Coach. I know you're proud of that as well. How long, Coach, have you been with Coach Lee at various stops? How long have you all been coaching together?
Well, prior to coming to Vanderbilt, Clark and I had, kind of just professionally knew each other, but we had never worked together. We both spent time at Syracuse on different staffs, though. So I was on the staff that followed Clark. So a lot of mutual friends, and then we competed against each other while I was at Syracuse. Notre Dame put it on us a couple times, once at Yankee Stadium. So that's really how I got to know him, and then was fortunate to get hired right from the beginning. And it's been an awesome experience and journey so far.
Well, from our perspective as supporters of the program and fans of what Coach Lee and you and the staff are doing, I want to step inside that world to the extent that you can share. What was it about Coach Lee that really said, hey, I want to go work with this guy? He really's got what I want.
Sure. I mean, obviously, when you're making those types of decisions, you want to go somewhere where you're going to have success. So it starts with just evaluating his background and all the success he's had at all of his stops along the way, whether that was at Wake Forest or, most recently at Notre Dame. So his work spoke for itself. And then an interesting story is, I wanted to get to know him a little bit as a person. So one of the first people I called was one of the administrators at Syracuse, actually two women there that worked in the football office and that were there with the previous staff. And when I got that first call from Coach Lee, I called those two women and, said, hey, what do you think about Clark Lee? Is he a good guy? Is he a good family guy? What's he all about? Right away, both of them said the same thing. You're going to love him. You guys are made for each other, and it's a great fit. And then they started laughing and said, Clark actually called us about an hour ago about you. So that was it. And his reputation in the coaching ranks as being not only a great coach and intelligent and hardworking, but also just a good family guy and a good person. And that's really what attracted us here, and as well as just Vanderbilt. I mean, a place where you can do it the right way, where you've got high academics, you're doing both the school and the highest level of athletics at the same time. That was really appealing to me.
Coach, before I keep going in our conversation, we got some Commodores that want to say hello to you.
All right.
We got Darius Primetime Sims. We got Tom Fitz, and we got Jimmy Arnold, who says to tell you hello.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you, fellas. I got Coach Justin Lustig. Coach, 0 wins, 2 wins, 5 wins. The bar, I know, is set very high every year, but it seems to be harder and harder for a coaching staff to keep the players as a unit together from year to year. And I realize we may still be in the wild, wild west with the NIL situation, with the transfer portal. But before we kind of break into those categories, talk to us about culture inside the program and how Coach Lee has Team 3 coming together. What is it about culture that's so important to a program?
Well, we start with our program pyramid here, and I have never been anywhere in my 23 years of coaching where culture is coached as hard as it is here. And our program pyramid is total effort. We talk about the Vanderbilt football warrior, and then we talk about our covenants. And one of the top piece of our covenants is true brotherhood. So, going back to your point of team culture and building camaraderie and getting guys to stay, it starts with true brotherhood, and getting these guys to play for each other, which is not as easy to do as it used to be. But we are constantly promoting and striving to perfect our culture. And Clark does an unbelievable job. He's meeting with the guys every single day on culture and giving great examples and trying to tie in different ways to really pull our guys in the direction that we want to pull them.
And Coach, where we hear it as outsiders to the program, fans, we hear it in the interviews. We hear it in and see it in body language. We see it on the field, the way the guys interact before the game, during the game, after the game. And you can't fake that. It really makes a lot of sense that it's coming from within and how hard you guys work on that. But 5 years ago, would you have ever imagined you'd have to work so hard, considering now that you got to deal with the transfer portal and the issues with NIL being there? Does that just make your job so much harder now?
It does, but it's also, I think it's very encouraging. It's exciting to know that the difference we're making with this program and with this team and the way that Clark has built our culture, that it's really going to separate us. It's going to be something that no one else in the country is going to have. And that's exciting. And I feel like we have that already, and I think that's going to, and it has started to show up in our production on the field. I think it's going to continue to, I believe it's going to continue to do that. So it's exciting. And I think it's just, I think I'm a little old school. So the old school things of toughness and total effort and the things that we talk about and the true brotherhood, those things are demanded here. And, the guys are buying into it and they're believing in it. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of.
What was so very exciting is those 2 wins in November against Florida, Kentucky. And then social media takes us inside the clubhouse, the locker room for post-game celebration. Now, Coach Lee's dancing aside, everything else just looked like you guys were having, it just looked like the perfect moment to celebrate each other and the victory that came together. Take us inside there for just a minute. And what, from your perspective, how do you celebrate with those guys?
Yeah, I think that moment, there was so much buildup, from the first day that we were here, from, hiring the staff and, having a lot of attrition right away when we first got here of players saying that this is not for them. And that was okay with us, but it still made it difficult to compete that first year. But just all the adversity that we went through for 2 years, and to see all of the work really pay out and beating a top 25 team and on the road in SEC play. It was just a moment that, man, we didn't make it quite yet, but we're going in the right direction. And, I think we've always been very confident in what we were doing as a staff. And there's certainly, but the evidence to show up on the field, it certainly helps sometimes, and to prove that you're doing things the right way. And I think that was the message that hit me the most, is like, I believe in what we're doing, but man, it's nice to get a pat in the back once in a while.
Coach, when 5 hit 14 on that slant in the end zone against Kentucky, the whole Vandy Nation was going a little crazy that day. Yeah, for sure. Coach, we got a bunch more Commodores. Hopefully there's some names you recognize in here.
All right.
We got Brian Badger. We got Jim Cunningham. We got Kurt Page. We got Kenny Cole. And thank you, fellas. I've got Coach Justin Lustig with us this evening. Coach, many of us, there were almost 20 of us who went to Hawaii. We were there that week. We got to celebrate the awesome win, luau, all that great stuff. But before y'all kicked off on Saturday, there seemed to be a lot of team bonding and team events in the community, whether they were learning events or helping the community. How important are things like that off the field to the team and bringing the team together?
Well, I think, what first comes to mind is recruiting. And I'll wind back to your question, but, in recruiting, one of the things that we're trying to promote and sell to recruits is the idea of getting the whole experience and not compromising for anything when they choose a university to pursue their goals and dreams. So you get to play SEC football here, obviously, and play with the best. And we're going for a national championship here. And, that's easy to say. It's easy to talk about Nashville. It's easy to talk about the academics. But as a staff, we got to prove to these players and prove to these recruits that we're all about developing the entire student athlete. And I think if you have an opportunity to take a trip to Hawaii and you're not partaking in trips to Pearl Harbor and getting involved in the community and giving back to the community, you're doing a disservice to your team, and you're not following on the things that you promised those recruits. So Clark does an unbelievable job with those things. And right now we're currently, we've got a system set up where the team is broken up into different teams. So we break them up, and they can receive points for community service events. They receive points for going to a women's basketball game. They can receive points for listening to a visiting speaker on campus. So, just trying to make sure that we're hitting all parts of their lives and pushing them to be their best in everything that they do.
I'm so glad to hear that, because unlike in modern times and what y'all are trying to stress to the team, that hasn't necessarily been part of the package or the idea, the culture in the past, because way too many of us went there, got our grades, played our football, and that's all we did. And that's
Sure.
that's not a fulfilled experience. Whether you're in the league, you're one of those rare guys, or you're like the rest of us, you're going to be a professional in something besides football. That total experience, I think, makes all the difference. But Coach, in about 8 months, about the third game, I want to know where the team is going in Vegas for those outings. Has that been put together?
That's not my area. I'll be more worried about protecting the punter and making sure the tight ends are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I'm sure we're going to have several events for them, and we'll have some things set up. May have to keep some tight tabs on them, make sure they're staying off the roulette tables.
I was going to say, I bet you're going to have some mamas calling up and say, "Not my baby, don't let him go in there." Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Guys, I've got Coach Justin Lustig, and he's just sharing the culture. He's letting us know what's going on that we don't see on social media, what we don't see on the field, what's probably much more important than the results on Saturdays. It's rounding, it's making these Commodores into good citizens. It's giving them the great experience. Coach, how important is structure? I know it's terribly important. It's a bad question. How important is it for these guys who are part of the program to not just buy into it and go through the motions, but to make those grades, to make those network connections for internships and things? Because it sounds like now a lot of that is in place and that y'all are starting to take advantage of it.
Sure. Well, we talk a lot about the opportunity is not the outcome here. And what we try to stress to our players is that you have unbelievable opportunities here with our football program, with our university, on and off the field, but you have to invest in those opportunities, right? And the more you invest now, the more it's going to pay back for you down the road. So whether that be in networking with alums right now as a sophomore in college or a junior in college, those networking opportunities are going to pay off for you, extremely down the road. And then, same in school. The more that you reach your full potential in school, the more you reach your full potential on the field right now, that's going to pay off for you exponentially down the road.
I want to pivot for a minute, Coach, and talk about something that I suspect, without really knowing, but I suspect may be one of the more frustrating things ever for a coach who has to recruit high school kids. In today's modern technological world, and we live in the world of instant gratification, how does a coach reach those players who have their own brand and they're the big man on campus? how do you reach those guys? Because everybody wants a piece of them, but Vanderbilt's,
Sure.
Vanderbilt stands out. I know, but how do you get to them?
Yeah, I think I think what gets a little bit of a misconception is in recruiting. The first thing people think about in recruiting, oftentimes, in my opinion, is winning the battles. Right? How do we beat Texas A&M on a player when they're paying him so much money, or his face is on all these billboards, or how do we beat LSU? But to me, an equal, or if not more important area is the evaluation piece. So you think about, you look at the NFL draft every year and how many teams that are non-power fives are getting players drafted. There's quite a few.
Yeah.
And if you can find those guys, we will win most of the time against, almost all of the time against non-power five teams. So you just got to do a really good job of evaluating and finding those guys who can play at this level. I think that's a very important part of it. And then also there are guys like Cole Spence, one of our tight ends. He ended up having multiple Power Five offers, and I can speak to him because I was heavily involved in his recruitment, but it was just the perfect fit. His parents were completely bought into what we were preaching and the culture of the program. His parents wanted him, it was a non-negotiable that he was going to go to an academic school. So we ended up battling Northwestern, Stanford's, Michigan's to get him. But it was just a good fit. And he was he was geographically close. He was from Atlanta. So we just got to find those guys, and they're out there, they're out there.
How do you judge maturity in an 18-year-old knucklehead? How do you judge the character, the off the field stuff?
I think
you can look at film. I know you can evaluate guys that way. It's the other thing that would be so difficult to me.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I think my wife reminds me all the time when I come home and maybe complain about something that one of our players is doing that's 19, 18 years old. And she says, well, I was around you in college and I know what you were doing in college. So, you just got to understand that these kids are still growing and they're still trying to figure out who they are. And that's our job, is to help them progress and mature. But it is difficult, and I think when you go into the high schools, you're not only asking the football coach about the athletes, but you're asking, the security guard at the front desk, and you're asking the guidance counselor, and maybe you're asking the freshman coach, not necessarily one of the varsity coaches that had him when he was a young guy. And, there's certain non-negotiables. They got to love football. They got to love competing. They got to be tough guys, but there's some immaturity things that you're willing to bend on. And that there's an opportunity to help them progress and grow.
Someone also told me that you need to ask the local beat writer for the program because they've seen the good and the bad.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that's even a thing because I know everything's so digital.
Well, it's hard with the high school coaches too, because they don't want to say a bunch of negative things. They want to help their players out. We don't get, when NFL scouts come in, they don't often ask us a whole lot about the player because we want to help. If they ask me about Ben Bresnahan and Gavin Schoenwald, I'm going to be, gleaming about them. And I'm going to say a lot of great things because I love those two guys and I want to help them,
It was, I'm so old school. My coach used to keep all the recruiting letters. This was back when letters were mailed and all that back in the day, nothing social media. He wouldn't give the players the letters until the season concluded. And he was the stopgap between the recruiting coaches and the players because he didn't want any interference during this.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that would fly today.
No way.
Coach, we talked before we went online. We're in early to mid-February just about. This is what you termed the grind. What is going on with the program right now before spring ball actually starts?
So we're in a season that we've termed formation, where we're basically forming our team right now, and we've likened it to a crucible where we're melting them down and getting the impurities out right now. So part of that, like tomorrow morning, we start what we call mat drills. And mat drills, as a lot of you guys are probably familiar with, are, the morning stations, where it's a bit of a grind, and we're going to put the guys through it. It's going to be a difficult workout for them in the morning. Each coach will have a station, and they'll be very detailed, and they'll also be competing with each other. So we'll keep track of points. So almost every drill will have a winner and a loser, and we'll keep points of those. So they'll be competing during it. And then something new that Clark is doing is we've got another component of it that where the players are going to be basically on their own with some drills that they're only going to get limited instruction on. And it's going to be some physical drills where they got to flip tires a certain amount of times, but it's where you're going to be with a team of guys. That'll be about 10 guys in each team, and they'll have to identify what the rules are, what the idea of the drill is, and then the coaches are going to step back and let the players handle it. And what we're trying to develop there is leadership. We're trying to develop a player-run program, communication within the group, and just teaching those guys when adversity hits in the fall and those things are happening, and we're starting to see new fronts or new blitzes, that the offense can communicate and handle that adversity and not freak out.
And during these drills, are you going to be piping in 100,000 fans' voices, just pounding on them overhead?
There might be a little of that for sure. I'm hoping for a little snow in the morning too.
Oh, it sounds awful, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful for what y'all are wanting to do. Coach, how important is it for the younger guys, the younger class guys, to step up and take the reins, if you will, as leaders within the program? How important is that to the team?
Yeah, we want a player-run program. I think what we've experienced even so far in these 2 years, as when we first got here, it was like the coach is constantly talking, the coach is constantly correcting. And over the last 2 years, you're seeing more and more of the players taking ownership, where there's player-to-player accountability, and they're talking to each other and they're holding each other accountable. And that's really where we want to get to. And so it doesn't mean that the young man's got to be a senior. It could be a freshman or a sophomore. You can still hold somebody else accountable, and developing those leadership skills is critically important to where we want to go.
You always hear, this is an old school talk or adage, that until a current staff gets all of their recruited players into the program, you don't really know what you have. I don't believe that. I really don't, because we've all seen the strides from team 1 to team 2, and now team 3 is at the door. I guess my question would be, is that when y'all took over from Coach Mason's staff and team, there wasn't a lot there. I know, in just sheer numbers. Are there still players on the team now who were from the Coach Mason era, or have they all matriculated, graduated, left, whatever?
No, there's a significant amount that are still here. It's like anything else. There's change is hard, and it's a different culture, and it's a different set of values. But no, I agree with you. I don't think that you need to have your entire team be recruited by your staff. You're developing your culture and you're developing your systems. Is it a little bit more difficult when a new staff comes in and they have to teach a new defense and a new offense and new special teams? Yeah, it certainly is. And there's going to be, some mistakes made because those guys aren't in the same system for multiple years, or multiple years in the same culture. But it's certainly doable. And I think it's been better and better, as we've progressed, and we're at a point where I don't know that that's an issue at all.
Correct me if my numbers are wrong, but here, from my perspective, this is what speaks louder than anything. Less than 10 players in the transfer portal, and only one coach has left. Am I wrong about the numbers? McKenzie,
No.
I think, was the only coach who left. And I think we had the lowest number of players in the SEC to go into the portal, unlike, say, Texas A&M, which had close to 30. How does Coach Lee, how do you guys as a staff, how do you keep that together? Where's that mindset? How's that developed?
Well, I believe it starts with recruiting. Starts with recruiting. You get what you sell, so you can't go into a player's home and sell something that you aren't. I think when you do that, and I think that happens quite a bit in college football nowadays, because it's easy to try to want to win that battle and think that, man, if I just tell him that he's going to get this amount of money or he's going to get this prestige by coming here, but then what happens is that young man comes and he's not a starter right away, and those things that were promised don't happen. He's out the door right away. So starts in recruiting, being honest and authentic in what you're all about and what you're recruiting to and what they're going to experience when they get here. And I think if you're on the same page as those players and they get here and they know it's going to be hard, like, we don't sugarcoat that. I mean, I think that's one of the things I like to tell guys in recruiting is, look, this is going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done. You're going to a top 25 academic institution. You're going to play the highest level of college football in the world. And it's not going to be easy. And you want the guy that lights up and like, yeah, bring it on. I want that challenge. So I think that helps. And then also I think that happens in hiring your staff as well. You want people that have some chips on their shoulders, that want to do something big, and win an SEC championship and do it the right way and believe in the culture that Clark is building. So you have to, when you're hiring people too, you got to sell the things that you're selling your players and your whole organization on. And if you get those right fits, people are going to want to stick around. And that's really me and my family. I mean, we love it. I love what we're building here.
One of the themes that I keep reading is there's been a shift in power, if you will, from coaches to players because of NIL, because of transfer portal. I don't necessarily believe that either. I'm just telling you that's the general talk. But players, like you just said, you have to be authentic and real because they see right through that. They can tell. These players, they just seem, each decade or generation seem to be more and more, I don't know, just be able to sniff it out, if you will. I'm not describing it correctly.
Sure.
Maybe you can help me kind of further that thought about, is there in your mind any shift of any power, supposedly, in the way that an athlete can be recruited and kind of dictate his terms, if you will?
Yeah, I don't feel that. I don't feel that. I don't feel a shift in power. I feel an added layer in complexity just with the financial part. I don't think that affects the day-to-day operation at all. And I haven't felt that at all over the past couple of years that NIL has been in existence. It's just an added layer of business that you have to deal with, but once those things get ironed out and a player gets, what the free market is declaring that he deserves, once those things get ironed out and something's signed, it just goes back to normal business. So I don't feel that, I don't feel that at all. And I think, for any alum that wants to come to a practice or be around the facility during meetings, you're going to feel like it felt, back in the day in terms of like the meetings and the way practice is structured and the discipline and those types of things.
So what you're saying is that both number 13s are going to get yelled at just as much as the fourth string guy.
Well, I think, and that's the way it's got to be, right? Like if you can't coach your best players hard, I don't think you got a chance. You got to be able to coach your best players hard, and then everyone else understands that if you're pushing your highest profiled player really hard and pushing him to his potential, I think everybody else falls in line.
But coach, aren't those the best kind of players, the ones who are coachable, the ones that just soak it in and aren't prima donnas, and they're there to learn and to get better based on that learning? For sure. And I mentioned earlier, we're talking a little about recruiting. And I know I keep going back to recruiting, but I think that's really, I know as cliche as it is, but it's the lifeblood of the program. One of the things that we talk about all the time, on top of, competitiveness and love for the game, ambition, but it's also coachability. Are they a guy who's going to pick up the system? And it doesn't necessarily mean intelligence. It means a guy who's willing to play within the system and
and do what the coaches are asking them to do. And I think that's critically important. So if you start in recruiting, you're going to get those types of guys, and, and at the end of the day, guys are motivated by playing time, right? So if they're not going to listen and they're not doing the right things and they're stepping the wrong way every single time, they're probably not going to be on the field. So, I think that's an age-old motivator, and that hasn't changed.
No, I think that's one of the continuous things that'll always be there. The want to get on that field has to be there. Sure. The competitive fire. Coach, we got some more Commodores. We got OJ Fleming. We got Coach Gary Shepard. We got Gary Veach. We got Mark Matlock. A whole bunch of guys are in here for Coach Justin Lustig. Coach, I've had numerous alums, not just today, but have told me before, you have an ever increasing active alumni, football alums, who want to support Coach Lee and the staff and the program as best we can. But we need some guidance, whether you're the guy to help us share with us right now, or we have another conversation with someone else within the program. We want to be there for you guys. We want to support you the best way we can. What can we do? What are some things that are helpful?
The first thing that comes to mind is be here and come be with us, and see what we're building, and help spread the message from your eyes on what we're doing. And Clark's got an open door policy, so meetings, practices, anything that you want to be involved in, we'd love to have alums around. And I think what that does for us is it starts to spread a positive word, but it also makes connections for our players, right? I mean, it's maybe an opportunity arises where a young man's looking for an internship and he bumps into an alum, or, hey, I got a buddy that does this and you're interested in this, and that's going to help maybe somebody stay here and just feel a little bit more comfortable. I also think, just the knowledge that some of the alums can bring to some of our players. We like to say successful people leave clues, and having all the Vanderbilt successful alums back on campus and observing. You mentioned Jim Arnold. He's been around quite a bit, and he's been great. Like, what a great guy to have watching your punters during practice. And whatever 2 cents he can give, and even just the extra motivation. When I go to the specialists and tell them that, hey, a longtime NFL vet is watching you guys today in practice, that little extra motivation, that's going to help us have a better practice. So being around, I think that's first and foremost, and and building relationships with our players and our staff.
April 8th is the spring game. There's a great opportunity to show up, show out. Come into ball games, whether it's on the road or at home, buy season tickets. I think through the alumni or through the Black and Gold Club, we even get tickets to games. The Black and Gold Club, Chris Griffin is doing a wonderful job. He's doing such a good job. It's growing. He needs an assistant. But that is, and I hope this is made available, made known to the current program players, what's there by way of alums, not just with football, it's all varsity sports, about internships, job opportunities, summer job, whatever it may be, mentorships. So I know that the Ingram Center we had on, oh gosh, I can't believe it. Allison Wenzel was on a few weeks ago talking about how that is promoting the players or the athletes, student athletes, and what their endeavors. And Coach, we got just a couple of more minutes, and I appreciate your time tonight. Of course. I know you're staying late for us. What can we look forward to this spring or maybe in the fall? Of course, I'm not asking you to give away the secret plays, but what kind of more expectations? What are you going to see from an energy or from coach and things?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you this, and this is going to go out on a limb a little bit, but we're eyeballing postseason play, and that's talked about every single day in this building. So we are dead set on that. The bullseye is on that, and we're going to get that done. So postseason play for sure stands out. And then just in terms of some X's and O's things, I think, we're excited about the quarterback position. Not only AJ Swan, but got a lot of depth there, and we've got a really talented wide receiver room.
Mhm.
So you may see a Vanderbilt team that's throwing it around a little bit more effectively. And exciting about the offensive line that we have back. We've got some good young running backs. So, there's just a lot to be optimistic about on that side of the ball. And then, that's obviously easy for me to say because I'm coaching on that side. And then defensively, the thing that stands out to me is just Coach Howell and his maniacal pursuit of getting those guys to play hard. You're going to have a tough, hard-nosed, aggressive defense, and I guarantee you're going to see that. And Coach Howell and his staff, along with Coach Lee, we're unbending on total effort. So you'll see that on defense.
Coach, you can see the bodies flying to the ball. We didn't have to wait for Sundays to watch film. We could see that during the game. When in the picture frame, you have 9 or 10 players at the ball. There's a great picture that somebody captured. I think it's the Kentucky game, and there are 8 players making that tackle. That was just an epitome of what he's teaching.
We talk a lot about hyenas, and hyenas maybe aren't the prettiest looking animals, but they hunt packs and they're aggressive, and there are gonna be a bunch of hyenas around the ball.
That's so great. And from the other side, you didn't talk about the tight ends, your babies. What are we going to see out of the tight end room this year?
Well, first off, Gavin and Ben, man, what great leaders. What great young men. I'm so excited to watch their futures progress on and off the field. But they've really set a great foundation for the tight end room and what it means to be a pro, what it means to work hard, and what it means to be a Vanderbilt football player. But right in their wings is Justin Ball, who played a lot of good football last year. Super excited about him. He's a big, physical, smart tight end. He's about 6'6", 250 right now. And his little brother Cole is 6'6", 252. So we've got 2 really strong bookend tight ends that both have got good hands, good range, can stretch the field. I'm really excited about Cole and to see what he can do. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to redshirt him this year, which is going to be huge for us down the road. So those 2 guys, and then we've got some young guys coming in that we're looking to make a difference too. 2 young men from Alabama that we're excited about, and then we've got a transfer that we're working on right now. Is a grad transfer. I can't really speak on him, but we're excited about the room.
You're going to have a full room again. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Coach, I'm going to get you out of here. 2 more questions, and then we'll cut you free. During the season, what is your favorite day of the week and why when it comes to football activities? Man,
that's a great question. You can't beat Saturday. It's certainly Saturdays, but I'm not going to go with that one. I'm going to go with Friday. I'm going to go with Friday. Friday, the camaraderie in the hotel the night before, the anxiousness, the excitement that's kind of pumping through the hotel. That's an exciting time, going through the final game plan with the players and trying to build that optimism when you're showing like some of the weaknesses of the opponent's defense and how we're going to attack those things, and hearing your players speak up in those meetings when they're really dialed in and they're communicating what their responsibilities are, and just that confidence that's built the Friday night before a game is one of my favorite times. And then I also, in home games, we stay at the hotel, the Marriott here. I've got 2 sons, and my youngest son oftentimes will stay with me in the hotel. So that's a fun kind of father-son night to bond too.
Oh, what memories he's going to have. And you too, hanging out with all 85 of his brothers at the hotel. That's so cool. Last question for you, Coach. I promise, get you out of here. There's a lot of construction going on within the athletic facilities. We've seen photos of part of the stadium. The northern end of the stadium is being started in that area. What's going on right now that you've seen of late? We haven't seen any pictures in a couple of weeks, but what do you see?
Yeah, just a lot of construction. There's Jess Neely right now is shut down. So if you haven't been on campus lately, it's been shut down for almost a month now. So they're already, there's a groundbreaking ceremony for the north end zone tomorrow. The south end zone's completely wiped out right now. A lot of it's I believe a lot of it's like plumbing, electrical, underground stuff that they're just getting ready to start the major works. But it's just awesome to see cranes and bulldozers and a bunch of fencing and, orange barrels and, there's
Progress.
constructions going on. There's improvement going on.
And does that get the guys in the program talking or seeing this a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think, what's nice for us is we've been promoting the renovations and recruiting, for the last 2 years. But when you have a recruit on campus and they see construction in progress, because a lot of programs, heck, I've been doing this for a long time, and there's a lot of places that show the diagrams and show the architectural designs and promise something. But when you see the actual construction, there's evidence that it's going in the right direction.
Gosh, if I'm a 9th, a 10th, or 11th grade prospect and I see this and I know that, man, when I get here, this is going to be in place, that's gold right there.
It is. And I think even more importantly is the message it sends on the commitment from the administration and the commitment from the university to athletics, and that's, to me, that's the most important thing, is that we are building something special here, and we're investing in it, and, it's going to pay off down the road.
Well, Coach, all I can say is I'm more fired up after this conversation than I was before, and I was already fired up about the program. So thank you for spending some time sharing a little bit inside the program and just the awesomeness that you guys are creating there. We really appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, of course. And I wish I could hear more of your stories too. I enjoy hearing some of the old alum stories, and it's fun to tie that stuff back into our current players.
It is. And I'm so glad we have so many. We had like 22 or 23 watching tonight, and hopefully a group of us will be there for the spring game and get to see you then and in the fall. But Coach, thank you again for tonight. For you guys, I'm off next week because I know you all have Valentine's night planned, so I'm giving you some slack. But we got number 86 coming in 2 weeks. Ben Bresnahan's going to spend some time with us, and we got them lined up over the next all the Tuesdays coming up. So you guys take care. Anchor down.